A question I've heard a lot of people ask, not just recently, but over the years, has kind of been, why do teams do this certain situation? And I figured, why not make a quick video explaining what the logic is here? So, Tampa Bay, you see, they're currently down 8 points. They were down 14 points and then scored a touchdown. So typically you think, okay, down 14, that's 2 touchdowns. Don't do anything fancy, kick the extra point both times, and you can go to overtime. And well, that logic does make sense. It actually is by far and away the preferred strategy to go for 2, and you should essentially always go for 2 in this situation. Well, why? Well, let's get into it. These are the numbers that we're going to talk about here. And again, a lot of people tend to view a 2-point attempt as a pure 50-50 and a 1-point attempt as a pure 100%er. That's not exactly the case, but even if it were to be the case, the math still would check out. It still would be the smart strategy to always go for 2 in this situation, but let's use exact numbers. Why not? So 55% chance of converting a 2-point attempt. That's the league average. And then, the league average for making an extra point is about 94%. Let's play both out in terms of if the Buccaneers were to score 2 touchdowns here, right? At the end of the day, if they don't score a touchdown like they didn't, well, then none of this ends up mattering, right? Or if they somehow scored 3 touchdowns, here, then none of it matters, right? Let's play it out as if they were to, not just get the touchdown they already got, but get another touchdown, and that would be the end of the scoring for the game. Well, what would their odds of winning be if they decided to kick the extra point both times to try and send it to overtime? If they go for the 1-point conversion both times, they have a 45.7% chance to win. Now, again, why is it this number? Well, because there is the potential of them missing extra points, so it doesn't get to overtime, and I'm assuming they have a 50-50 shot of winning in overtime. Again, I'm using Tampa Bay here, but just in general, the average team has a 50% chance to win in overtime. Makes sense. Now, there actually is still a scenario where they could miss the first extra point, but then if they go for 2 on the second one and convert that, then they could win in overtime. So there's like a 1.7% chance of that happening, somewhere around there. I forget the exact number, but that's also factored in. But as a whole, you're looking at slightly below 50% odds to win if you decide to kick the extra point. But what if you go for 2? Well, again, there's several things that could happen. You could make it or miss it. If they make the first 2-point attempt, well, what would you do in that scenario? You're now down 6. If they were to score another touchdown, well, then you'd be tied. They could kick the 1-point attempt, and then they could win the game in regulation. Don't even have to worry about overtime. Whereas if you miss the 2-point attempt, unlike the extra point, where if you miss the 1-point attempt the second time, you actually have a chance here. You can, again, try to get those 2 points. You'd be down 8 points, but then you could go for 2 again and still have a chance of forcing overtime. So that is the logic behind this decision. The statistics, if they decide to go for 2 here, are there's a 51.7% chance they win in regulation. That's if they hit on the 2-point attempt and also if they make the extra points. So that's the odds there. Whereas there's a 24.75% chance it goes to overtime. They miss the 2-point attempt, but then hit the following 2-point attempt and still end up, it's the same as if they made both extra points. They score 14 and they go to overtime, in which case they have a 50-50 chance to win. And then there is the 23.55% chance they actually just lose straight up in regulation. They miss both 2-point attempts. Actually, it should be slightly lower than that. I think I did a math error because technically there is a small likelihood of them, making the 2-point attempt originally, but then missing the extra point after the fact and then still winning an overtime, but again, not very likely. So these numbers still are close enough. But that means that if you go for 2, you typically have a 64% chance to win, whether it's in overtime or regulation. Whereas if you kick the point after attempts, you're looking at just a 45.7% chance to win. So you're getting nearly 20% higher odds to win, assuming you get both touchdowns, if you decide to go for 2 here. It's pretty clearly the best strategy, and you'd have to be really bad at 2-point attempts to be a team that shouldn't go for 2 here. And in fact, I think just every team in the league is good enough at 2-point attempts that the statistics still favor going for 2 in this scenario. I think the reason why this sometimes confuses people is because it actually maximizes worst case scenario. It means there's now a chance, and a relatively decent chance, that you could lose in regulation if you make this decision. So I think that's why it kind of scares some people and makes people say, wait a second, if you just kick the point after attempts, you're almost certain to, at least get to overtime. But again, the goal isn't to get to overtime. The goal is to win the game. That's why this is definitely the right decision math-wise, and I think it was the correct call for Tampa Bay. They should have just found a way to convert on a 2-point attempt, then score another touchdown. That was why they lost, not this decision.